We received text messages from Jami Lee Ross. He broke his silence after he promised to send us those text messages. They are, of course, between himself and the National Party General Manager Greg Hamilton. Our Deputy Political Editor Chris Bramwell has been sifting through them, and she joins us now from Parliament. Good evening to you, Chris.
Hi, Alex.
So you've just freshly received what Jami Lee Ross has sent through. What have you read?
So basically it goes like this. Jami Lee Ross texts Greg Hamilton and says he's been asked to track down individual donors but is unable to do that. He says funds were transferred to National's botany account, he's the botany MP, and was told the names and addresses for the donors and he passed those on. Greg Hamilton replies that they do by law need those names and addresses, but in this case many of the addresses provided don't match what's on the electoral roll, and he goes on to say that he's happy to try to confirm that from his end. Jami Lee Ross then replies and says that it was Simon Bridges that arranged the donation, or groups of donations, and that he was tasked with collecting it, and asks if there's a particular problem and the law hasn't been complied with, then they can probably give the money back. Greg Hamilton replies and says that would be a shame, and he's happy to talk to whoever he needs to so they can line up the donors with the electoral roll, and suggests asking the person who provided the names and addresses and starting from there. Now, these text messages were received or sent back and forth on the 12th of September, so that's 3 months after the recording that was released yesterday where they talked about the $100,000 donation. National has released the same messages because I think they clearly feared that the text could be edited or doctored in some way, but I've looked at both sides and they line up perfectly.
They're pretty the same, aren't they?
Yeah, they are exactly the same, apart from one name is blanked out. And Peter Goodfellow also released a statement saying that there was speculation that National had received a $100,000 donation and said there was no such donation, but he did confirm the botany electorate received 8 donations and Mr Ross declared 8 donations to the party. Now, I think the texts are not a smoking gun. They pretty much confirm what Jami Lee Ross said to media the other day about the conversation between himself and Greg Hamilton. I think the only curious thing is Greg Hamilton's statement that the addresses don't match up with what's on the electoral roll.
Yes, Chris, it's certainly, I guess we can read this as Jami Lee Ross under-delivering again, right?
Potentially. I mean, the recording yesterday, we all listened to the donation part of it and it was interesting, but as you just heard in the track there before with media talking to Simon Bridges, it was really the second half of that phone call where there was the bombshell, where he really talked in disparaging terms about Maureen Pugh and was quite offhand about David Carter and Chris Finlayson. That was the part of the call that was actually, I think, more undermining than anything about the donations. So in both respects, with the texts, with the phone call, it's hard to say if there's much there that is really going to get Simon Bridges in trouble. Of course, that's really up to the police now to look at that and look at these text messages and decide for themselves whether or not there's anything to investigate. Yes,
because if you look at those texts, the ones you read out, Jami Lee Ross tells Greg Hamilton that, hey, this is Simon Bridges' organisation. I have been instructed to receive these and to deal with it through the botany electorate. So really what we're left with is simply a he said against a he said in terms of what the instructions, alleged instructions, let's make clear, from Simon Bridges were. None of what he's actually shared us in terms of hardcore conclusive evidence really points the finger at Simon Bridges.
I agree, but the other thing to say is that some of the National MPs that I've talked to off the record say that they think in both instances that Simon Bridges is being set up. Now, David Carter said to me on record last night that he read the transcript of that phone conversation, and he said it was clear to him that Simon Bridges was being set up. Now, I think in this case again as well, it's Jami Lee Ross who's saying what Simon Bridges told him to do to Greg Hamilton. So there will be a lot of talk in the background about the texts, about the phone conversation, and whether or not Simon Bridges was being set up.
Chris Bramwell, thank you very much for your time and the information and analysis you provided this evening. That's our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Bramwell.